All right. We have a new setup, so I'm just trying to check things out just a bit. Let me share my whole entire screen, which is a lot of information. Mm, hold on just a sec. I might be. Hold on just a second. I have a couple students. Let me make sure that I'm in the right Zoom. That does sound like something I would do. No, I'm not in that one. Okay. Let's get on the whiteboard for just a moment. Okay, I must be in the right one. All right, cool. Every once in a while I get these moments of panic. Like, I'm in the wrong one. But I'm not, I'm in the right one. Okay, cool. Let me share my screen. So there's a couple things I want to talk to you guys about. I had some students talking to me about this yesterday. They're like, we still need to talk about disclosures. We still need to talk about going over how to list a property. We still need to talk about how to, and there was a number of things that were asked about. And so what I want to do is I want to give you guys the resources in order to make that a possibility. But I have a new system set in place, and so I'm kind of stumbling through it, if that makes any sense. Let me make sure I'm checking passcode. You got in though, right? I'm just checking. My text messages are delayed. I'm assuming that Jimmy, that are you the one that messaged me? Let me make sure I'm in the class. I'm in the right. Let me just check a couple things. Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. I'll be right back. I've got to do some troubleshooting. I think we're good.
Different links in different places, is that?
Well, no, this is my old link, but I'm just keeping it because I want to. Okay. That is so weird. Aiko was letting me know that there was a problem with getting in. And so I'm like looking at the meeting ID versus the link that's attached, and it's a different meeting ID number. So I'm glad you got in. Cool, cool, cool. It's the one we have saved. I just want to keep using that one until we can't use it anymore. And then the ones I have in my Zoom account right now aren't even being used, so those can all be deleted. We'll just leave them there for now, though, because they're there. So for those of you that are like, "Oh, she shared the meeting ID," I didn't. That's a meeting ID that doesn't connect to anything. I mean, it connects to the class if I'm in, but that's pretty much it. All right. That being said, I'm glad you guys are here. Before I did some troubleshooting, I was talking about how I've had a number of students tell me, can we go over the listing agreement? Can we go over disclosures? There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern, and I apologize if my screen is too large or too small. Whatever the situation, it's the first time I'm using this computer, so it's kind of an interesting process for me. The screen is like 3 times the size of the screen that I had before, so it's amazing. But that being said, let's go over here. And what I want us to do is I want us to just talk through the process of unless, and that's an unless there's something else that you guys want to talk about. The students that asked about this are not in the class. So I'm going to put into the chat link to the Google Drive PowerPoint we are discussing. Okay. If there is something else that you guys, oh, okay, thank you. Oh, Jimmy, I'm so sorry. I just saw the message. So no, I didn't message. I don't have people's names because that's a completely different, that Google Drive and stuff is completely detached from everything else. I don't have names or a link to emails or anything else. So that's completely, I only have numbers. I don't actually have any names. So I'm glad that you're letting me know. But that being said, let's jump into this. Now, if either of you guys that are here already in the class right at the beginning, or in the Ask Me Anything chat at the beginning, if you have something you'd prefer to go over tonight, or there's a question or a particular term that you'd like to discuss, we can build a PowerPoint for tonight's class. This was something somebody had asked about, and this is something that can be done later this week. But let me know if you guys have anything that you would want to walk through. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about it. You are reading ahead, I'm sure, in the class. I do have, these are samples of stacked disclosures for the buyers, stacked disclosures for the sellers. You'll notice this says copy of. It's because I pulled it from another folder. But I wanted to make sure that there was a copy of these. And so I'm going to put that in chat as well, so you guys have that as a reference for those of you that would like to, copies of disclosures. That way you'll be able to reference what I'm talking to you about. So there's a few disclosures. Let's look at disclosures for just a moment or longer. And we can, is it Command Plus? I'm not on a laptop, I'm on a desktop, so I'm having to like figure out, you can't just like do what you do on the mouse on a laptop. I'm having to remember about desktops again. So that being said, disclosures regarding real estate agency relationship. Why is this the very first disclosure? This happens to be the packet for a copy of buyer's purchase agreement and some general statutory disclosures that are needed. This is the very first disclosure that you should be giving to your clients, whether they are looking to buy or whether they're looking to sell. This is the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. Right out the gate, this form is being provided in connection with the transaction for a leasehold interest exceeding 1 year as per Civil Code sections 2079. When you enter this discussion with a real estate agent, however, regarding a real estate transaction, you should from the outset, understand what type of agency relationship or representation you wish to have with said agent in transaction. So that's right at the top. Now, you might be saying, Kathy, you've never read that before. You're right, I haven't. I haven't read it in any of my classes, but that's what these classes are for. This is for us to deep dive information. You'll notice that in any of the classes, whether I live lecture for 5.5 hours a day, or 4 hours a day, or 8 hours a day in your classes, or you're an independent study student, I can only do so much within the parameters of what of the time that's been given. So I want you to know that that's why I give the Wednesday nights. This disclosure is going to be the golden ticket. It'll be your Willy Wonka golden ticket with regards to your clients. This disclosure is the one that's the fundamental foundation for whatever you do from this point forward. Why? Because this document is legal. If you can hold it up in a court of law, where's my little papers that I always like am throwing around? Right here. Up, 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 up. Actually, these aren't my little papers, but I have little papers here. It's good to know this is in here. I was wondering where that was. Hold on just a moment. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Now this document's been ripped, right? But even if that disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship has a ripped corner, if it's signed by your clients, it can be held up. Why? Because under the statute of frauds, it's documented, right? It's written, it's signed. There's identifiers on here. There's a date that was set that said that this relationship went into. In the same way, you might have a marriage certificate and the date that you went in to your marriage certificate, or you might have a driver's license that says the date you went, that you are holding. This isn't a driver's license, but the date is on your driver's license, right? This disclosure is the first step in a contractual agreement between yourself and the client. How do we know that? Well, if you're going to help sell the home, seller's agent, a seller's agent under a listing agreement with the seller acts as the agent for the seller. Notice the word here, only. And you might find at that moment in time, your client is wanting, they're like, wait, you aren't going to represent the buyer? Well, if I find a buyer, would that be okay if there was dual agency? Yeah, but it says right here that you're only going to represent me. In this scenario, if you actually say, I would like you to represent me in this capacity, then absolutely. And what else goes with it? The seller's agent or the sub-agent of that agent has the following affirmative obligations to the seller: a fiduciary duty of utmost care, integrity, honesty, and loyalty to deal with the seller. What does that mean? You're putting the seller's needs in front of your needs with regards to the sale of the property. And then what do we do with the people on the other side of the table, or the buyer, right? To the buyer, and of course also to the seller, to your client, because you're still taking care of your client. Diligent exercise of reasonable skill and care in performance of the agent's duties. A duty of honesty and fair dealing and good faith. A duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or desirability of the property that are not known to or within the diligent attention and observation of the parties. An agent's not obligated to reveal to either party any confidential information obtained from the other party that does not involve the affirmative duties set forth above. And you're like, okay, Kathy, tell it to me like I need to hear it. You as the agent, whether your client is going through some emotionally debilitating situation, a divorce, the loss of their partner, a loss of a child, a loss of a grandchild, a loss of a job, that information is not public. The only information that is public is with regards to the home. Roof certification, roof is not certified. House is being sold as is, but there's a jacked up back fence. All of those things have to be shared because those hold a level of consequence with regards to the contractual agreement that we have, not only with our client, but also the license we have with the state of California. And so this is basically saying, hey, I'm going to do all this stuff for you, and I'm going to tell the other people. And I always, in the class, you guys, sometimes you'll see me actually put my hand like over the computer, or throw it over, like we're throwing a blanket over, I don't know, an Afghan over the of a chair or something like that, right? Like on the other side of the table, because I'm always reaching over to the other side of the table, because whoever that third party is on that side, we don't need to know, we're not going to know any of their business, just like they're not going to know any of the business on this side from the emotional perspective of what's going on, what the relationship that's transpiring on this side between us or between our clientele. Now, if your client is a cousin or an uncle or an aunt or your romantic partner, you do have to there's identifiers with all of that. You need to share that this is somebody that you know, that this is somebody that is a relative. That stuff is disclosed, but I always try to make it very clear that whatever's happening on the other side of the table, they don't have to know the business on this side of the table, but they do need to know everything about the property. Now, that's the seller side. Well, what if you're the buyer's agent? Okay, a buyer's agent can, with the buyer's consent, agree to act as agent for the buyer only. That means they're not dealing with the seller, right? They're not dealing with the listing. They're not the listing agent. In these situations, the agent is not the seller's agent. Even if the agreement, the agent may receive compensation for the services rendered. So so what are they saying there? Even if the seller is paying the buyer's agent's commission, they are not working on behalf of the sellers of the home, either in a full or in a part from the seller. So meaning what their commission is going to be paid, no matter who's paying the commission, they're not an agent for the seller. An agent acting only for the buyer has the following affirmative obligations to the buyer: a fiduciary duty of utmost care, integrity, honesty, loyalty in dealings with the buyer. And you're like, wait a second, Kathy, those are the exact same words they used up here. Yeah, they are. B, a duty of fair and honest deal. Oops, sorry, I went too far. The buyer and the seller, and to the buyer as well as to the seller. Now we're on the other side of the table. We're the buyer's agent, but we still need to communicate in an honest manner, a duty of fair and honest dealings and good faith, right? A duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or the desirability of the property that are known to or within the diligent attention and observation of the parties. An agent is not obligated to reveal to either party any confidential information, divorce, death, a struggle with finances. All of that stuff is that confidential stuff obtained from the other party that does not involve the affirmative duties set forth above. And it could be a situation where there's a court case involved in the sale of this home, and it's a divorce court case that would be aired. That laundry would be aired, right? That dirty laundry would be aired, if you want to call it dirty laundry. And the judge would say, we're selling the property because of the divorce. So agent representing both the buyer and seller, what's that, Kathy? Well, that's the dual agency. A real estate agent, either acting directly or through one or more salespersons and a broker associate, can legally be the agent for both the seller and the buyer in the transaction, but only with the knowledge and consent of both the seller and the buyer. Okay, so the buyer and the seller are aware of it, and they're totally cool with it. And how do we know they're totally cool with it? Because they would have signed off on that disclosure. They would have signed off on the fact that they're aware that that would be okay. Other duties to the seller and the buyer are stated above in their respective sections. And that's it. And I've had agents tell me, Kathy, it's so hard to explain this disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. Is it though? I mean, think about it, class. All you're saying is, hey, as the seller's agent, I have a fiduciary duty to you. I'm not going to share your business with anybody because it's none of their business, but I will talk about the property. I will talk about the roof leaking, or that there's a drip, a sink with a drip in the bathroom or the kitchen. There might be a little mold in the shower. That's not the same as a spill in the tea. Spill in the tea is like, oh, her and her tennis instructor and all the things and yada yada. That's not selling the house, right? So the seller's agent, who are the sellers? Well, they're the owners of the home. And you're like, the seller's agent was the one that was the procuring cause. Well, technically, the seller's, SELLERS agent, is the one selling the house but you can't really call them the selling agent per se. You can call them the listing agent, but they're working on behalf of the sellers. The buyer's agent is the one that brings in the buyer. They're called the selling, SELLING agent, because they got this thing sold. The seller's agent was assigned by the seller to list the property. The selling agent got the property sold. They're the buyer's agent. They're the procuring cause. Now, can the seller's agent be the selling agent? Yeah, you could be a dual agent. You could be the person that not only got the listing, or your brokers could be the brokers that got the listing and also found the buyer. That would be a dual agency under your broker. And you're like, yeah, but my broker's not on both sides of it. Yes, they are, because your license is hung with them. The broker's who, everyone? The broker is the agent. We are the sub-agent, or we're working on behalf of the brokerage. So in that kind of situation, it is dual agency. What are the seller and the buyer's responsibilities? You're like, there's more stuff up here. You're right. You're right. I want you guys to read forward in this. Okay, we're going to read the majority of it, but some sections I'm going to leave for you guys. Seller and buyer responsibilities. Either the purchase agreement or a separate document will contain a confirmation of which agent is representing you, and whether that agent is representing you exclusively in the transaction or acting as a dual agent. Please pay attention to that confirmation to make sure it accurately reflects your understanding of your agent's role. The above duties of the agent in a real estate transaction do not relieve the seller nor the buyer from the responsibility to protect their own interests. You should carefully read all agreements to assure that they adequately express your understanding of the transaction. A real estate agent is a person qualified to advise about real estate, not about the lump on your back or the mole on your nose, not about your marriage, not about what church you should be going to. Real estate and real estate only. Okay, now I guess you guys could have like casual conversations about different stuff, maybe a Corvette you're driving or something along those lines. But if legal or tax advice is desired, bump bump bump, consult a competent professional. And you're thinking, but Kathy, I am a competent professional, I know about taxes. We are licensed real estate agents. We're not licensed real estate marital counseling. We're not licensed real estate property tax advisors. Now, unless you are, and then of course, it is what it is. But a competent professional in the field that's certified to do that job. And if you are certified to do those jobs, be very wary that the commissioner with the California Department of Real Estate is going to go, okay, were you helping them with tax advice as in the capacity of a real estate agent, or were you helping them out with tax advice in your tax office or or from an accountant's perspective? Like how, because our clients are going to trust us with all that information, but we really do, as agents, need to identify the difference. We are real estate agents. No matter what those other wonderful things are that you do, they are wonderful. They're valid. You're valid. Everything's great. But from the commissioner's perspective, did you muddy the waters by wearing a different hat but presenting real estate documents? And that's where things can get a little more than a little, that's where things can get difficult. So I want to share with you guys, and I want to encourage you, please make sure that when you talk to your clients about real estate, you stay the real estate agent. Both seller and buyer should strongly consider obtaining tax advice from a competent professional because the federal and state tax consequences of a transaction can be complex and subject to change. Throughout your real property transaction, you may receive more than one disclosure form, depending upon the number of agents assisting in the transaction. The law requires that each with whom you have more than a casual relationship to present you with this disclosure form. You should read its consent each time it is presented to you, considering the relationship between you and the real estate agent is your in your specific transaction. So this disclosure form includes the provisions of these codes in the civil code. Read it carefully, and then at the bottom, we acknowledge a copy of this disclosure. And you're like, Kathy, they haven't even signed it. How do they have a copy of this disclosure? Well, this specific disclosure, like everything, by law, the client should be receiving a copy of anything that they've signed. And they don't have to have a copy of the signed copy of what they signed. They should have, you might have a paper stack of like 100 pages that are the disclosures themselves that have yet to be signed if you're a paper happy kind of an office. And then that exact same stack right next to it, and you're just flipping each page over as they sign it so that they can see that the blank copies they're going to take home are the exact same pages of the ones that they're signing. Or you might be a lot more tech savvy and you have everything on Google, not Google, sorry, on DocuSign or something like that. So you're talking through, so as an example, like we're doing in class right now, you might have your client sitting with you looking at your computer screen and you're going over the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship, and they're like, we totally agree, and then they click on it, you know, let's say they click here or they click somewhere on the screen, and the screen allows them to put their signatures there. And then what happens there is we have that digital copy, which is completely legal, and a copy of that digital copy of each one of these disclosures gets sent to their email address. So if if it's raining too hard or the wind's blowing too hard and they lose one of the 100 pages, they're not losing anything because everything's digitally been sent to their email. So those are opportunities as well. Depending upon which real estate office you go into, chances are they're going to be almost 100% paperless. Okay, that's page 1 of the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. The second page, it breaks down and explains the civil codes that are associated with what is being asked of you, because up here it does give you this disclosure form includes the provisions of sections 2079.13 to 2079.24, inclusive of the civil code set forth on page 2. Read it carefully. Well, we're not actually going to read it carefully, but we can read a little bit of it because it's a lot of information. So for those of you that are like, what if it doesn't make sense? Well, let's see if we can read a couple sentences together and see if it does. Under Civil Code, whoops, I need to slide this forward. Under Civil Code 2079.13, as used in Section 2079.7 and 2079.14 to 2079.24, inclusive, the following terms have the following meanings. The word agent means a person acting under provision of Title IX. Well, that would be us, right? In a real estate transaction, that includes a person who is licensed as a real estate broker under Chapter 3. So right here, immediately you know that the person that's representing you must actually be a licensed broker. And you might come back and go, Kathy, but I'm not. I'm just a salesperson. The agent is always the broker. Your license is hung under the broker. You're a representative of the broker. The broker's not going to be at every single one of these meetings. We are the representatives for the broker. We are also a representative of our client. So it's saying right here that the agent responsible for the documentation and the evidence getting to the consumer is actually your boss. If you want to call your broker your boss, let's call them the broker. And if these disclosures are not, a copy is not given to the client, who's in trouble? Is it you? Is it your broker? Or is it both of you? Chances are it's both of you, but the buck stops with the broker. And then what happens after that, okay? Let's read that again. Agent means a person acting under provision of Title IX, which is commencing in Section 2295 of the Civil Code in a real property transaction, and it includes a person who is licensed as a real estate broker under Chapter 3, commencing with sections 10.130. And if it's under sections 10.130, I would venture to say we're now in the business and profession codes of Part 1 of the Division 4. There we go, of the business and profession code. For whatever reason, the BNP code, because that's who's over the California Department of Real Estate, they start with 10 130 or a 10 something something something, but for whatever reason under the civil code it's always 4 digits dot. So 20.79.7 through 20.79.14, you're like, why don't they just say 7 through 14, or why don't they just say 7 through 14 and then 14 through 24? Because it's identifying this civil code. So it's the civil code 2079 and then section 7 through 14. But the business and profession codes under sections 10.130, that's, it says part 1 of division 4, but we are under the business and profession codes. We're also under the civil codes, but we're under the business and profession codes as a real estate agent or as a dentist or as a doctor. Business and profession code covers all businesses and professions in the state of California. Okay, let's go back to it. So who is licensed as a real estate broker? I'm going to skip those words because I was just talking about that section of the business profession codes, and under whose licenses is a listing is excluded or an offer to purchase is obtained. So basically the transaction happens. The agent in the real property transaction bears responsibility for the agents, salespersons, or broker associates who perform as agents of the agent. So the people who are representing the brokers. So when a salesperson or broker associate owes a duty to any principal, who's the principal, Kathy? The customer, the client, or to any buyer or seller, that means the people on the other side who are not a principal. If they're on the other side, then that means they're the third party, right? In a real property transaction, that duty is equivalent to the duty owed to the party by the broker of whom the salesperson or broker associate functions. Basically, what they're saying is you've got to be just as honest with your clients, you have to be just as honest with the third party as you are with your clients. And it continues to go in this formatting. This is the contractual law side of things. This is the agency law of things. This is the side. So when I say that this holds up in a court of law, when I say the judge is going to follow the law, the judge is going to turn to page 2 and go, okay, based on the civil codes and based on the business and profession codes, I see here that you were supposed to do this, 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 and this. Did you do all those things? And you might say, Your Honor, I did. And then your client's going to be like, Your Honor, no, they did not. And I can prove it. Yeah, I signed this and it said they were going to do it, but they didn't do it. So this is a very powerful tool. Now, are you worried that you're not going to be able to do these things for your clients? You're going to be able to do them. All it's asking you to be is an honest real estate agent, staying within the letter of the law and staying within the code of ethics with the National Association of Realtors. So it's covering you on a federal level and it's covering you on a state level. All right, let's get down. So it's more than that. And like I said, there's areas that I'm going to let you read. But this breakdown, it continues to express what each term means and what the foundation of it is. When it's watered or when it's concentrated, basically we need to be great agents for our clients. The consumers are being protected because they're the layman. We're the specialists. They're going to throw the book at us if we do not follow the law. And is it hard to follow the law? No, it's not. We're selling houses. If there's something wrong with the house, we disclose what's wrong with the house. And then we identify that prior to our first open house, whether or not the house is going to be sold as is, identifying everything we know and everything we could potentially know about the property, get a home inspection done on that property. And then also let the buyers know we did have a home inspection done on the property. These are the things that are not working or not in working order or proper order. They're not going to be fixed. We have the value of the home set in a manner that if those things were fixed, the price would be higher. We've lowered the price to meet a bit in the middle in regards to the home needing to be fixed. And then the buyer can either put in an offer saying, we'll pay you more if the house was in good standings or in good shape, if you will. And then at that point, that's where the negotiations come in. But the reality of the situation is we just have to disclose the information. Now you might say, well, I have a client that wants to get the most money they can out of their home. Well, then as an agent, I need you to sit down with them and go, hey, in order for us to list this house and sell it for top dollar, it needs to come in at top dollar. So we need to get a home inspection done on the property and ask the home inspector, what is it about this house that needs to be fixed? And how much do you think how much is the estimate on those things that need to get fixed? What would you do to help sell it? And a home inspector or a home improvement person is going to come in and say, well, the walls definitely need to be repainted, and you're going to have to fill in wherever the pictures were on the wall, and there's this and there's that. And then they're going to give a number to the seller of the home, and that amount of money, it might only be like $400 or $500, or it could be $5,000 or $10,000. And then the seller's like, nope, I'm not doing the work. But what if a buyer were to put in an offer that said, we'll pay you another $30,000 for the house if those things got fixed, or we'll do this or that? That's that negotiating process. That's why sharing what works and what is not working with the home is just part of the process. We're not here hiding things, because our clients can have a 4-year of what I call buyer's remorse, right? They can come back. They have a 3-year statute of sorry. They have buyer's remorse. It's 4 years. It's called a statute of limitations. They have 4 years to think about whether or not they were given the right deal. And they're going to have these documents. They're going to be able to read back through and go, you better believe it. ACO totally did a great job. You know, Jimmy totally did a good job. They did exactly what the paperwork said. And yeah, I'm unhappy because, you know, like one of the kids put their head through the wall because they were doing something silly and pretending to be playing Minecraft and this and that. But that's not the agent's fault. That's just your family's standard wear and tear. Okay? So at the bottom of page 2, confirmation. The confirmation required by subdivisions A and B shall be the following. So seller's brokerage firm, this is obviously a sample. The seller's brokerage firm information would be listed here. The brokerage license would be here. If a broker of the seller or the buyer, or if you're a dual agent, that information would go here. If you're the buyer's broker's firm, if you're the buyer's agent, and so on and so forth. Continuing with all of the codes, the civil codes, we continue down here. And that's it. Basically the information is being signed and identified, okay? Now we have the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. For those of you that are like, we have never gone over that with you, Kathy. I know. But anybody that's buying a property needs to know that either state or federal, there's no discrimination. Well, how would there be any discrimination? There isn't. There's protected classes. Kathy, what are the protected classes? Race, color, ancestry, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, gender expression, marital status, familial status, sources of income, disability, medical condition, citizen, primary language, immigration status, military or veteran status, age, any arbitrary characteristics, criminal history, all of that. If you're found to have done any of those things, and look here, right here at the bottom of page 1, equal housing opportunity. Now, the equal housing opportunity should be on all of the California Association of Realtors forms, and I believe it is. Yeah, even on the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. Oh, I went too far. This disclosure specifically is letting us know that our clients are aware that they can't be discriminated against, nor can they act in a discriminatory manner, nor can we as their agents. Okay? Equal access to housing for all, federal and state laws prohibiting discrimination against identified protected classes. Number 3, potential legal remedies for unlawful discrimination. So what do we do if? Well, there's ways to handle that. Protected classes characteristics, we already went over those. The California Department of Real Estate requires training and supervision to prevent housing discrimination by real estate licensees, and we know that this actually is in effect because of the implicit and explicit bias training that will be, for those of you that have yet to take the practice class that started in 2024, Senate Bill 1495 forced the education of the practice book to implement explicit and implicit bias because that was not being dealt with properly prior till now. And you're like, Kathy, it's 2024. I know, right? But we're still finding that there are agents out there that are discriminating. Number 6, realtor organization prohibits discrimination. National Association of Realtors, Their ethics article 10 prohibits discrimination, and then it lists them down here, and it's a shorter list than the last list. Race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Who is required to comply with the fair housing laws? And for whatever reason, people we're still breaking the law. I'm not going to say they are now. But who needs to comply? Sellers, real estate licensees, that's us, right? Mobile home parks, insurance companies, landlords, real estate brokerage firms, homeowners associations, or what is also known as HOAs, government housing services, sublessors, property managers, banks, and mortgage lending. And you're like, isn't that everybody, Kathy? It is. It really is everybody involved in the entire process for someone to help someone buy a home or to help someone sell a home. But for whatever reason, we have to bullet point and identify, hey, as a reminder, not for you or I, but for the person that doesn't see themselves or doesn't realize the way they're acting, or maybe realizes how they're acting. Now they can realize what they're doing is not acceptable behavior. Examples of conduct that may not be motivated by discriminatory intent, but could have a discriminatory effect, ergo implicit and explicit bias. We've shared that before, right? The idea that you're like, I didn't realize I was I was discriminating, and then the outright doing of such things. Prior to acceptance of an offer, asking for or offering buyer personal information or letters from the buyer, especially with photos. And that's kind of a telltale. So if you've ever taken a class with me, if you ever take the practice class with me from 2021 till now, you'll know that there are things that we've read in the different books and curriculum, not in the 2024 classes, but prior to that, you'll hear me say stuff like, I understand you're going to send a letter of intent or a cover letter saying, we'd love to buy your home, but never do we send photos. Because if they don't accept the offer that our clients have given, is it because they're Asian? Is it because they're white? Is it because they're black? Because an image could breed some concern about bias. Those types of documents may inadvertently reveal or be perceived or as revealing protected status information, thereby increasing the risk. Now, I wasn't even looking at it from protecting the potential buyers as much as it may put the sellers in a position where it's like, well, we chose not to take their offer. Well, is it because this family is black? No, it's because we took the offer from this other black family that we're willing to pay a little bit more. You know what I mean? It could come across that way. Even if we're refusing to rent an upper level unit to an elderly tenant out of the concern for the tenant's ability to navigate the stairs. Dick Van Dyke is what, like 99 right now, and that guy can still dance like a madman. We can't have ageism we can't be associated with the idea of ageism. So renting the top level, any of that. I don't think they have some of these issues in some of the other states because people are like, you mean we're not supposed to? No, you're not supposed to, but I guess they have to identify it here in California. Number 9, examples of unlawful or improper conduct based on protected classes or characteristics. I don't know that we actually have to go over examples, but maybe you have a client that's like, can you give me an example of something? And you're like, sure. 9A, refusing to negotiate for sale, rental, or even financing or otherwise make a housing opportunity unavailable, failing to present offers due to the person's protected status. You're like, we would have offered, we would have shown the property to them, but because that couple if the couple's mixed race, if the couple's same sex, if the couple, whatever, or maybe it's not a couple, maybe it's a pregnant woman with no husband, or, those are all protected classes. So if I say anything that triggers you, I apologize. I'm not here to trigger you. I'm here to share with you. Those are examples of unlawful or improper conduct. I don't think we have to go through all of these, but I don't know if you can see at this point in time with the disclosures, it's like, okay, why do people think that they've been taken advantage of? It's pretty detailed, right? Examples of positive practices. I don't think we need the positives. I mean that in the nicest way. If you're doing it right, you're cooking with gas, we're closing these deals quick, right? What about fair housing resources? And this kind of thing comes up in my classes all the time. I even had a student ask me today about some information. If you have questions about your obligations or rights under the fair housing laws, and what they mean by the rights is they're not really saying that to us as the licensed agent. These documents are for our clients. Or you think about it and whether the resources are going to be able to assist you. The first one that's federal is HUD. Then you've got housing. Then you've got your local fair housing council office. Everything's pretty much nonprofit, local or it's federal or it's state. So it's not like you're going in to pay. It's a program set to protect the consumer, to protect the person looking to rent or the person looking to buy. Local Association of Realtors should truly be a place as a resource. I had a student come to me today to let me know that the local association didn't take care of things in a very proper manner, and I said you need to contact the commissioner with the Department of Real Estate and share with them what your local association did, and and ask how the California Department of Real Estate would prefer that association to do things. Because the commission at this point, it was actually pretty heinous. Not pretty. It's not actually pretty heinous. It was heinous. You need to let the commissioner be aware that your local association, where you're getting your MLS, your multiple listing service account, and your broker is, that they're not following if they're not following the code of ethics, but they're connected to the National Association of Realtors and the California Association of Realtors, and they don't know the ethics that they're supposed to be following, and we're supposed to be following, they probably need to be retrained. And so that was a tough conversation to have today with a student sharing, previous student that's licensed and isn't one of my students anymore, and says, hey, I'm having a concern and this is what happened, and this local association kind of took it into their own hands and took care of some things that shouldn't have been taken care of, and I'm like, you need to let the commissioner with the California Department of Real Estate be aware of what happened so that they can be told through the regulatory system that the way they're handling things improper. We need to protect you as the agent in the same way the consumers are protected by us. And if there are people at our local association, as a reminder, your local, like I'm with PWR here in Southern California, if I call my local association and I ask them information and they don't know the law, they're not supposed to give me advice. They're supposed to advise me to one of the people in the department or management or whatever, the person that's answering the phone. If they don't know the law and if they don't know what we are required to do. And that was one of the things I shared with my student. I was like, look, or previous student, I was like, look, we're licensed with the California Department of Real Estate. We're under the commissioner. We are part of the ethics, the code of ethics with the National Association of Realtors. And then we're under the ethics of the California Association of Realtors. But the people that work at the association, not all of them are licensed and not all of them are under that requirement to stay within the letter of the law. They might not know that what they did was inappropriate. And that's one of the reasons why the commissioner needs to be aware of what happened, because the people that work inside these facilities that we think know what we know should have the type of training. And if they don't have the type of training and they aren't aware of the law that we need to follow, then maybe some of these local associations do not need to be open. Maybe they need to transfer their local association or let another local association absorb their association so that they can restructure, because it's the protection of the consumer. And in the same way I'm asking you to protect your clients who are the consumers, I'm here as your instructor to do what I can to protect you as the agents. I'm calling the future into the present. You're licensed agents, but how can we stay licensed and aware and within the letter of the law and within the code of ethics and doing all of this managing of all these things that we need to do if the support system that we thought knew what we needed, the law that we needed to follow, is falling apart? And so that was a real hard conversation to have without saying, I'm going to get on the phone like a mom, a bear, like, excuse me, did you treat my student in a bad way? But the reality of the situation is these kind of things are going to come about in the same way the lawsuit that passed in Missouri, where the National Association of Realtors was found in need of restructuring with regards to disclosure. And now we've got the lawsuits happening in California. Because that was a federal It passed on a federal level. So federal means national. That means California can now come in and go, okay, now we have to change some of the disclosures, the way we disclose commission and how commission is taught and how you talk through commission with your clients. So there's a lot going on in these disclosures. You've always every business in California is supposed to have, now it could be other states too, but I'm only going to talk to you guys about California. I'm only aware of it. But a fair housing poster has to be up in all businesses, including the real estate offices. And in a real estate office, they might not actually have at the main office, they might not have like a specific set space for employees. Like they might put it up in the in a kitchen area or a kitchenette area. They might put it up in the bathroom because that's where the majority of the clients, excuse me, the majority of the agents work, or it's up by the Xerox machine or something like that. But it's got to be in a place that is going to be seen by contractual employees, because we're not technically employees. We are because the state needs us to be seen as employees so that they can charge workers' comp to our brokers. But the IRS doesn't see us as employees, right? So, but that fair housing poster must be up in all businesses, including real estate offices. That's a great question, Aiko. Yeah. Um, Fair housing resources, we did that. Limited exceptions to fair housing requirements. No person should rely on any exception below without first seeking legal advice. And that is the truth. I've had more than one student come to me and say, not that, and past, present, potentially future students. I've had people come into some of my classes too that want to become students or in the industry. They're like, okay, what do I need to do? So when I talk to you guys about these things, um, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I follow Emily D. Baker, and Law and Lumber and a number of, like Runkle of the Baileys out of Canada, but we call them Canada over here, and a number of other attorneys. I watch them and I might talk to you from a legal perspective with regards to the contracts, because the contracts are written by attorneys, but I am in no way, shape, or form able to give you legal advice. The only quote unquote legal advice I can give you, if you know somebody is in need of help, is to seek legal advice. But one thing I will say, and you can take me to court on this one, is if it's about real estate, you must go to a real estate attorney. In the same way, if a family member, God bless you, I don't want this to happen to any of you guys, but if you have a family member that's been diagnosed with cancer, you don't send them to the chiropractor, they go to the oncologist. There's a real estate attorneys do real estate. They do all the aspects of that. A divorce attorney deals with divorces. A family law attorney divorces and some other stuff, right? So allegedly, for those of you that are attorneys that are on the replay crew, you're going to be able to answer those questions for anyone that has them. But we can't give legal advice. But the legal advice that we can share with people is to go get legal advice with a specialist in our field. I have the hiccups. Hold on just a sec. Now, if you have some family members or you know someone that's trying to rent um, an apartment in a senior housing center, because they have a really cool pool and they've got a cafe and they've got like a medical unit in the building and all this other stuff, legally compliant senior housing facilities are exempt from any of the regulatory systems set in place, because they can discriminate if you're under 62. They can say, sorry, man, you can't come back when you're 62. We'll let you move in, right? So there are some exemptions where people will say, my family's being taken advantage of, or my family's this, or my family's that. Even a student was talking to us, was it last week, was talking about their fiance and his family are being removed from the apartment complex, or they're being asked to leave, and the rental agreement is not being renewed. And they were like, can they do that? And I was like, as a landlord, you can. and they're giving them enough months. And we were actually talking about that from a different perspective last night, from a commercial real estate perspective. We had Eve Capital at my class in UCLA, and Laura came in, and she's the founder, really a phenomenal commercial real estate her commercial real estate perspective is awesome because she's in the industry, but it's completely different than residential. And she was sharing from the owner's perspective of a building that's being rented, and if they're going to renovate that building, they just won't re-up the rental agreements, the lease agreements that should turn into a turn into a month to month, a periodic rental agreement. And she said that's the easiest way to remove the tenant so that the work can be done. And I was like, oh, that's something I should have said last week when we were having that conversation of, can the landlord legally say we don't want to re-up your rental agreement? I'm like, well, they can legally, but they probably need to renovate or do whatever. And so it was really fascinating to have that conversation with, in the class. I just act like one of the students when I'm in the class when we have a speaker, because I'm fascinated by the perspective of the speaker. I usually vet really great people to come into classes, but not because, I think they're great. I think it'll keep people awake. But the reasoning behind all of that is it feels like discrimination. It feels like that you're being taken advantage of, but the landlord could be going through the accurate due process that is required of them. And we get attached to properties in the same way a buyer is going to get attached to a property because they love the color in the master bedroom on the wall, or they love the tile around the shower. And you're like, why? Or maybe you're like, I get it, Kathy. I don't necessarily get that stuff. I'm always looking at the payment. Okay, what's the payment for this place? Is it worth it? Can I do it? Can we flip it, reverse it? It's got to be. I have a different mindset. I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Let's pay this bad boy off, But our clients do look at things in an emotional manner. So whether you become a property manager, or you are a property manager, or whether you are going to help people buy or sell homes, there's this emotional level that causes people to think, I've got to contact the housing, the HUD. I need to get, there's a discrimination here. There's discriminatory practices, but sometimes it feels like discrimination when the lease isn't renewed and the client is being asked to move out, but in reality, they're actually following the law. And that's where I was trying to go with that. So that being said, this is just a document letting the buyers know, or the tenants know, as well as the sellers and the landlord, that discrimination is not going to be part of this process, the transfer from one to the other. Okay. The next one, possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, disclosure or consent. A real estate broker, whether a corporation, partnership, proprietorship, sole proprietorship, etc., may represent more than one buyer or seller. And you're like, do you really need to say that? Yeah, there's a reason for these disclosures. This multiple representation can occur through an individual licensed as a broker or salesperson, or through different individual brokers or salespersons acting under the broker's license, meaning there's more than one person in the office. So as an example, let's say that Jimmy's our broker, and Aiko and Aiko goes to list and Aiko and I have our license hung under Jimmy's license, right? He's the broker, we're the sales associates. Aiko has a listing, I have a buyer, they accept our offer. It's technically considered dual agency, or it's technically considered representation of more than one buyer or seller, because it's under the same broker's roof. And so they're identifying how that works. Multiple buyers, multiple sellers, dual agency. Are the offers confidential? Offers not necessarily confidential. Buyer is advised the seller or listing agent may disclose the existence, terms, or conditions of the buyer's offer unless all parties and their agents have signed a written confidential agreement. Whether any such information is actually disclosed depends on many factors, such as current market conditions and prevailing practices. So an offer can be put in and that offer can be discussed, but I'm going to share with you, this is very thin ice when negotiating for your client you shouldn't be pitting one you shouldn't be pitting one offer against another offer, saying, well, they're offering more, we should go that direction. There's a lot more than just the offer price that goes into it. It may be a higher price, but it might be a 120-day close. It might be a slightly lower price with a 60-day close, and your clients really need to get out of the property, and they might find that financially that additional 2 months isn't worth it to them because they're paying a mortgage, and that additional 2 months is going to come out of the seller's pocket to pay the mortgage because they're going to be in the house an additional 2 months. So there's a lot that goes into offers that are being presented, and all of you don't really have to be able to do the maths, but it is a really good idea to think about all of these things, especially when the seller has a mortgage payment. Is it beneficial for them to make a little bit more money over the course of 120 days? And you're like, okay, well, they're basically going to make another $10,000. And you're like, okay, are they though? Because their mortgage payment's $5,000 a month. So they're still, at the end of the day, still going to be left with the same amount of money. Is it beneficial? The house is empty. Let them close. You know, that kind of thing. A place for the sellers to sign, a place for the buyers to sign. And then, of course, you have the buyer's brokerage firm. The buyer's brokerage firm. So you could say ABC brokerage, their license, the date, and then let's say this would say ACO's name, ACO's license, and so on and so forth. So the top line would technically be Jimmy's firm's license and date. Then it would be ACO, and then of course it would be Jimmy's firm again and license, and then it would be my name and my firm. So that's where the differences are on those pages. Wire fraud and electronic funds. Can you guys think of any reason why they would want to go over a paperless process for the transfer? Because that's what everyone's doing, right? Wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. I think I've shared with you guys in the past when Adam and I bought this property that we wire transferred the closing costs, and when we transferred the closing costs, we got it was supposed to all be in America, and it said Cambodia on the paperwork, and I was like, so I called escrow and I was like, hey, the wire transfer information you gave me and my bank confirmed with you, it's identifying that your bank is in Cambodia. And they're like, no, you're wrong. I wasn't wrong. The money went where it was supposed to go, but I will never use that escrow company again. Because even if I make a mistake, I'll share with you guys that I made a mistake. But when it's in writing that says Cambodia, and there could be a wire transfer fraud, there could be an issue. What if Bank of America, it wasn't Bank of America, what if the bank was somehow broken into on the wire, electronic fraud side of things, and there goes $100,000? What's going to happen? So we need the clients to be aware that there are concerns with wire fraud and electronic funding. Most people do wiring. Technically we didn't have an issue, but I'm telling you, my bank called me 3 times that day. They were like, hey, we're just letting you know that information is accurate because it does. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know this escrow company. It's who the sellers wanted to use, and we were fine with using them because I was hoping that they would be amazing. But they're like, well, we have confirmation that the funds were received. That we don't understand why it says Cambodia on here and it doesn't say these United States or USA or any of that. I'm like, I don't know. We're just going to close on this deal. But those are things that would cause a buyer to lose their mind. And you could say I kind of did. And then I was like, well, you know what? Like, we went with the instructions that were given to us, and I just know not to use that escrow company anymore. Scams can happen, Aiko, yeah. I know of many scams up in the Bay Area back in the 90s and the 2000s of scams that happened with checks, where checks were copied or the routing number and the checking account number were copied, and so there's a lot that goes into this process to protect the client. That's one of the reasons why we have these regulations where if somebody hands us a check we can only hold it up for up to 3 days, then it has to go into a trust account to protect it, and it can't just be sitting around, you know. But wire transfer stuff is a concern. And so we need to be able to identify, you know, and I remember my bank saying, it's not our fault if the money doesn't get where it needs to go. And I'm like, okay. Like at this point, our money's gone. You know what I mean? The money's gone. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you other than we followed what escrow asked us to do. So, just so you guys are aware, I won't ever identify the escrow company, but what I will tell you is this. They kept sending me the wire instructions, and I'm at the bank for 20 minutes waiting, and I keep looking in my spam account, and I finally contact my husband. I'm like, hey, they keep telling me they're sending the wire instructions. Can you log into my email? What am I not doing right? Am I so stressed that I can't read it? They hadn't spelled my name right. So they were sending the wire, which is supposed to be this encrypted information. They're sending it out to somebody. So there were many problems that we had, but we did get the house and the money went through and everything's fine. But we're only as strong as our weakest link. So when you find that a company has failed you in these ways, we should have closed early. Escrow wasn't ready to close because they didn't expect us to close early. So we sat and waited, and they told us it was the seller, and then they told the seller it was us. And I was CCing the seller and the seller's agents this whole time. Not the seller, sorry, just the seller's agent. And I was like, hey, we're done. Like we were done two weeks in advance. I'm like, we're done, you know, times of the essence. And basically let us know when we're closing. And escrow was like, oh, well, we're waiting on the seller. They haven't done everything. And so I forwarded that and then responded to them by saying, can you please clarify what it is that the seller needs to do? And I CCing the agent, and the agent messaged me back and said, they sent us the same thing about something that you needed to do. And I was like, so anyway, there are companies out there like that. They're probably not open now, but there are companies out there like that, and they'll get shut down because they're obviously they obviously aren't in regulation. So wire transfer, according to you are advised, obtain phone numbers and account numbers only from escrow offices, property managers, or landlords at the beginning of the transactions. Do not ever wire or electronically transfer funds prior to a call confirmation. Confirm the transfer instructions. Only use a phone number you were provided with previously. Do not use any different phone number or account number included in any of the emailed transfer instructions. So I'm just letting you know, we did all of the right things, but escrow still did not. Orally confirm the transfer instructions are legit and confirm the bank routing numbers. We did all of that. Avoid sending personal information in emails or text. They did not do that. They sent out my personal information. Provide such information in person or over the telephone directly to the escrow officer. Again, she did everything through email to somebody's email. Take steps to secure the system you are using with your email accounts. These steps include creating strong passwords, blah, 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 blah. So you're just basically saying so your information doesn't get stolen. We can't fight the fact that escrow really dropped a massive ball in that area, but it's letting you know that the client needs to be aware that they're protected. Yeah, Jimmy, disclose, disclose, disclose. Absolutely. And that's basically all we're doing. California Residential Purchase Agreement. We went over this, and we can go over this in with a fine-tooth comb, but this breaks everything else down section by section, and we'll get there. How are we on time? Oh, it's 7:40, you guys. I already went over an hour. And this is why things get this is why it takes a little bit it takes it a little bit we can only do a little bit per day, right? But before, I don't want to jump ship because it is 7:40. Is there anything that you guys want to discuss before we go? Those are just hey, these are the things you need to think about before we do the purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions from the buyer's side. And of course, it could be buyers or sellers for the agency disclosure, right? I hope it makes it real, Jimmy. Thank you. I'm honored by that. I really appreciate you sharing that. We'll continue. So coming next week, we'll continue with the California Residential Purchase Agreement. And what we'll do is we'll have it set here, but, oh, couldn't preview for the blah, blah, blah. I did something. But what we can do instead of the sellers, because I have like a breakdown on who the sellers are as a joke, like the case study. I know it's a silly image, but I love the fact that these guys are called the Springs and they love, and then the Winters buy the home and these are your agents. And we can actually go. So what I want to do is, let me come over here really slowly but quickly. We'll re-review the disclosure regarding agency relationship. I have arrows. I discuss it over here. We'll talk about it in class. Then we go into that residential listing agreement. But you're like, but Kathy, we're doing the purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions. I know, you're right. So what we'll do is we'll go back in here. Let's go into, and we'll open up the case study for the sellers. Sorry, the buyers. Oops, here we are. Oh, hold on. Wait a tick. Man, the screen is so huge, it's crazy. I mean, it might not be crazy to you guys, but it feels crazy. What am I missing? By name, folders. I'm missing half my folders. All my folders. There we are. Real estate. We're going to go into exam prep. We're going to go into PowerPoints. And what we'll do is, instead of looking at the seller's case study, we'll look at the buyer's case study. And we'll do and so we'll basically go over those disclosures, but we'll do it as if these are the buyers, the Winters, and discuss the offer that they put in, close of escrow, the names of the names of the buyers, and we'll do it as if we are representing the buyers, okay? Oh my gosh, Aiko, no joke. It is a good idea to reread the chapters because sometimes we miss the concepts being because there's so much. I'm powering through with you guys anywhere from 3 to 6 chapters a weekend. That's a lot of information. And so I do want to encourage you, try to be, oh good, Jimmy, I'm glad. I want you guys to be up to about chapter 12. And what I mean by that is skim it. You don't have to deep read it. And we'll go over this weekend, for those of you that are doing the weekend class with me, we'll go over because we have this weekend and then we have one day the week after. And we will actually get through all of the chapters. The first weekend is almost kind of like I've thrown you into ice water. And I don't know if that makes a lot of sense or not, but like it puts you in a position where you're like, oh crap, I'm learning a new language. And it's like, yeah. So I want to encourage you that that's the way it might feel that first weekend. And then like last weekend, we were getting back into it and moving and stuff. And then this weekend, it's going to fly even quicker. It's going to move. It's going to feel a little bit more like, okay, I'm getting my legs, my sea legs, if you will, if you're on a boat. The next week, that's this weekend, and then the weekend after is one class, and then you're gonna have 7 days to prep and take the exam, the open book exam. You'll have 2 days. I mean, sorry, you'll have two options within those 7 days, and then we're gonna hit the ground running with the practice book. And we're going to be hitting a lot of the same things. One of the students I was meeting with this morning, that was also a previous student, said, so I'm looking back now and I see there was a lot of repetition with each one of the books. Very true. So any of the information where you're like, I'm not going to catch this, catch what you catch, because don't feel like that's the last time you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it in the second book, and then you're going to hear it in the third book as well. And what happens is there's that practice class is like here, and it's basically sharing that information with you. And then you've got the next class up, the principles. The next class is practice. This second class, it's gonna kind of feel like we went from first gear to fifth gear, and then just stay at fifth gear, because the first book is so gentle comparatively speaking to the next two books, and you're like, oh my god, Kathy, I can't even. But when you look back on it, you're gonna be like, okay, that makes sense. But breathe. We as children didn't look our parents in the eye when we were learning to read, and we didn't look our parents in the eye when they were arguing or any of that other stuff when we were infants, right? We were emotionally charged by whatever was happening. But we were learning the language through sound. We were learning the language through what we did see with our eyes. We were learning the language through all the different five senses. So I want you guys to sometimes just close your eyes, even in the middle of my lectures or anything I'm saying, and breathe. Because as children, that's how we learn the languages that we've learned, or when we've learned languages, it's been through all of those parts of our body. We learn through all of the parts of our body. Also, the question in the back of each unit, and are they similar to the actual test? Now, that's a great question too, Aiko. The questions at the back of the unit will cover about half of the open book exam. And then the other half that are going to be very familiar are going to be in your student portal. And your student portal has quizzes in each section. So the principals will have a practice set of questions. It's called practice questions, I think. And if you don't know exactly where that is, it just depends on which one of the platforms. The company has more than one student platform. If and when you have time, I don't want to put any stress or pressure on you, get on the phone with customer service and say, hey, I'm looking for the quizzes for the book that I'm in right now, and ask them to help you navigate. Because some of the platforms, it's a drop down where you can click on it and it'll take you into the quizzes. And then on some of the other ones, it's almost like your classes are blocked off in sections. And so the first little section says practice. It says the principles, and then it'll like click here to go into Zoom, or it'll say like quiz, practice quizzes, and I think that's the bottom part of this. And it's all like within that rectangular square section in your student portal where you'll be able to click on it. But customer service will definitely be able to help you do that. I don't actually have a student account, and I've been asking for it, and I know that the head of my department's like, oh my God, she just will not stop. I'm like, no, I won't, because I'm always here to take care of you guys as the students. That's my job, right? That's my protection. But because you guys are protected. I can't see your accounts. I can't log in. I can't check your attendance. I can't check what you have studied, what you haven't studied. I can't see any of that stuff. I can only, from the corporate office, log in and instruct you guys on the weekend. So I want you to help you advocate for yourself. I'd love to advocate for you. I'm sure they feel like I'm a helicopter instructor and not like a helicopter mom. But ask customer service to help walk you through it, because the questions that you're going to get on your student portal are going to be the other half of the questions that are going to be very familiar to the open book exam. So it's 50-50. 50% of the questions are going to be very close to the questions you have at the end of each one of those unit reviews. Oh, and I have those. I think I've shared these with you in the past, but even if I did, I'm going to share them with you guys again. I need to delete these. These aren't even the one that we're in. Let me go in here. Under real estate folder again. We'll go into the prerequisite training folder. We're in practice right now. PDF review material, unit outlet. Well, these are the PDFs. Those aren't exactly what I want to do I have the other ones that are PowerPoints. These will work. But the great thing about it is it's unit 1. So these are the reviews. I've already built, oh, sorry. I'm still not used to having a desktop, sorry. So unit 1, unit 2, you should be able to go through. So I think it's the first 30 slides or maybe it's the first 15, hold on a second, are all the vocabulary terms. And then here we go, multiple choice. California's economy is so large that it actually competes with, is it counties, countries, conglomerates, or continents? The next slide is countries. California's economy is so large that it actually competes with countries. So you can go in, and I will put this into the chat for you. so that you can set this up on your phone, because on your phone you'll be able to just spin through them because they're set up as PDFs. And pre-licensed practice quizzes, fourth tab on the Allied portal is where I found the quizzes. Jimmy, thank you. I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm going to put this as the Google Drive questions for principles book. So you guys have that as well, okay? And then the PDFs are great for any type of book. If you have an iPhone, it's not going to set up the same way as it is if you have a Google or an Android, because this is a Gmail account. So the PDFs would be basically your best bet at this point. But I have them. I have them for all of the chapters. Whoops, sorry. Still learning. So as you can see, I have all 15 units here for your review. And you don't have to review the vocabulary if you don't want to. If you feel more comfortable just sliding all the way to the end, like the last 10 or 15 slides of each one of these is the multiple choice. But these are the unit reviews at the end of your book, and these were built. I built these. There's also Quizlets, and there's a number of other things as well to help you review. One thing I would do, which might sound a little bit strange, but let's say as an example, you're reading through let's say you're reading through chapter 10. You might want to read through chapter 10, and then I'm going to go past the definitions for just a moment. Oh, there's a lot of definitions in chapter 10. This might not have been best. So you might find yourself going, okay, let me read the first question. The most effective method for the Federal Reserve to create a tight money market is it A, buy government bonds and increase the reserve requirement, B, sell government bonds to decrease the reserve requirement, C, buy government bonds and raise the discount rate, or D, sell the government bonds and raise the discount rate? And you might even be saying to yourself, oh God, Kathy, I don't know. That's okay. As you're reading through, you're going to be reading about the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, which is the banker's bank. And the moment you come up to the word create a tight money market, you're going to be like, oh, I think that was that question. And then once you answer that as you read through, now what's the answer? A tight money market means the supply of money is relatively limited. That's kind of where we are right now. That's why rates are higher. They've limited the availability. So therefore, interest rates would generally increase. And we know they've increased over the last few years because we were at 2 3/4 and now we're at the 7s, right? Selling government bonds takes money out of circulation as bonds are purchased. So raising the discount rate will mean less money will be borrowed and circulated. And it lets you know it's in the chapter, it's under the Federal Reserve System section. So you might go, okay, well, maybe I should just read all of the questions and then go read the chapter. And you're formatting your brain to be aware that these are the questions that are going to come. But if that's too stressful, don't do it. Because I'm all about your success. How can I help you be successful in this industry? And if you read the questions before reading the chapter, I do believe I'm a little bit on the creative side, but I do believe that those words start to float up into your, like, oh, I think one of the questions was asking me that. And then it helps you identify the areas that you need to be really locked into. You can never go wrong learning the terms, but I don't want to push that really hard on you, because after you've been with me for 3 months, you're gonna be like, Manischewitz, Kathy, you just keep saying the same words over and over again. Yes, repetition helps with retention, but I try to be repetitious with the terminology that I know that's going to be effective, and not just constantly call you bro. Okay, bro, whatever, dude. I'm trying to like pull away from the Kathy of it all, and I'm trying to encourage the terminology. I'm trying to drive the terminology. So I might say, oh, hey guys, have you seen that purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions that I just filled out? And you're like, do people really talk like that? No, they really don't. But I might talk like that in class so that you get more familiar with what the document's called. People call them purchase contracts. They call them deposit receipts. They call them, did you get the agreement? Did you sell the house already? Are you going to sell the house? You know what I mean? That in the office itself, they're not going to use these terms, but it's powerful to know what the term means and how to use the term so that when you take the state exam, you'll be able to answer the questions. And that's why I'll do some of the stuff that I'm doing. So if you feel stronger studying the terms than you do, or you feel more comfortable studying the terms than you do the questions because the questions might be overwhelming, study the terms. Highlight the terms in your book. You've got, this is the practice book. It's a little tiny one. There are parts, they always capital, or they always embolden, they always bold the term in the chapter. And if you, while you're reading, if you just want to highlight the words that make the most sense. So on page 17 of your practice book, it says an agency relationship is created when a person, buyer or seller, also called the principal, delegates to another person called the agent. So what I would do is I would highlight an agent relationship is created by a person, delegates to another the right to act on their behalf. Now, that's going to be like section, section, section. You're going to do like 4 words and then skip like 4 words because it's saying buyer or seller, that like it's doing all this filler stuff. We don't need the filler, y'all. We need just the straight scoop. And those are those little things that I do that that's actually what these outlines are. Those outlines I've built, I had a student message me. She's like, I have a different instructor now and his outlines are terrible. I'm like, oh, well, I built the outlines. I read the book. I built the outlines. And she's like, why does he have different outlines than you? I'm like, oh, he has the ones that came from corporate. I have the ones because I read the book. Every time a new version of the book comes, I just update it so that you know what page we're on. Hey, we're on this page. This information can be found on this page. You guys, what is the one thing you have in the class? It's your book. And when you're not with me and you're studying at home and you're like, Kathy said it was on 42. Oh, it is. You know what I mean? I want you to be able to do that. And so I was sharing with the student, and I was like, with all due respect, I push hard to give you guys I push hard to give you what you need to succeed. And if that means I have to read through another book and build another set of outlines, you know, I will do that. And I actually did that over the holiday season. I actually did over Christmas because I worked the day before, not the day after Christmas, we had classes. And I just remember going, oh my gosh, with a new brand spanking new book and having to build the outlines out with the new book. And the students are like, this is hard. I'm like, you think that's hard? Read the book during the holidays. But I've been highlighting and marking notes on margins. It is showing me, it is slowing me down, but that's how I memorize very well. Look, if that's how you memorize, do that. Another thing you can do is if you don't have to have an Apple phone. If you have the Google app, if you have an Android or if you have one of the Google products, and you have what's called, I actually have to open it to look at it. It's called, I have the app on my phone, but it's called, shoot, what is it called? I just reconfigured my phone. That's not the thing to do. I don't think reconfigure is the right word for what I did. I just started throwing stuff into folders. But it's not called Spyglass. Hey, Adam. No, he can't hear me. There's a part of the app where you can take a picture and on Google, and it's not called Spyglass. It might be called Lens. I think it's called Lens. And you can take a picture, and you can actually, it gives you the option of turning it into a PDF. It gives you the option of turning it into text, and you can actually take that picture, turn it into text, and then put it in a note in your phone. And I've done that with books personally as an instructor, where it's like so much there, especially when the book isn't digital and I can't have the book reading to me on the computer. Or I can't cut and paste on the computer. That Google Lens it's called Google Lens. It'll turn anything you're taking a picture of into a PDF. So even it could even potentially understand your writing, your own handwriting, and that way you can actually build an outline associated with the notes you've taken, the information that you feel is imperative to that open book exam. I also control F on the PDF. I couldn't think of what it was called. Google Lens. Sorry. He came in to try to help. It's so sweet. But anyway, I want to encourage you. You guys are this step. We're right around the corner from being done with the first of 3 books, and from here it's just going to run. Did you want to come over here and say hello, my little fuzzy bunny? I've been trimming her because she's got eye stuff. I know. I hear you. I can tell you. But anyway, that being said, yeah, she's adorbs, and she has. We need to trim those toenails, sister. You got some talons. But anyway, so that being said, if you guys have any additional questions or concerns, or if you don't, it's 8 o'clock. I don't want to keep you longer. I'm definitely going to see you guys this weekend. I'm a text message away. I'm an email away. If you want us to go over anything in particular, I know. She loves to climb into Adam's shirt. He sent me a video. I was in class last night, and he sent me this video holding the dog in his shirt. It was pretty funny. But anyway, so she's like, I want to go where it's warm. Nope. Where the people are? Okay. I hear you, Little Mermaid. But anyway, that being said, reach out to me. I'm serious. We will go over everything. Absolutely, Jimmy. Good night. Good night. Aiko, we will go over any of the stuff that you guys want to go over. Just because other students have asked doesn't mean that's the information we need to go over. We can go over whatever you guys want to go over. Okay? Oh, love, did you want to come say hello too? You're like, my sister's getting all the attention. Come here. Okay. Just so you know, she's only 8 pounds, but she is such a fluffy bunny. Oh, and that's why we do the Wednesday Ask Me Anythings. Absolutely. And we can always do a personal Zoom too. It doesn't have to be recorded and live for all the world to see. Okay? And here or whatever. So if you ever want to do a one-on-one, just message me. We'll try to make we'll obviously find a way to make our times work together. And what I usually do with students is when I say I talk to people on the phone, it's usually through Zoom. And then we'll discuss what the concerns are, and then I'll open my screen, because we'll be on Zoom, right? So then I can go to this website or go to this, and I'll start, if we're texting, I can actually drop it into your text so you have it from the text perspective. Or if you're like, Kathy, can you send this stuff to me by email? I can actually open an email for you, and we can start building the concerns and building the things that are going to help you be successful, because this whole entire experience is about you mastering the next level of success, right, in the industry and whatever field of expertise you want to go into in this industry. And you're going to find there's a lot of jerks in this industry. So the more encouragement that I can be, I want to be able to do that for you. Okay? But we'll touch bases. I'm sure I'll see you on Saturday if I don't hear from you sooner than that, yeah? Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good night. And for those of you that are on the replay crew, what I've shared with Jimmy and Aiko here in class is the same thing I want to share with you. I'm an email away. I'm a text message away. You guys have my Google text number. You have my email address. You have one of them. I'm sure you have one of them, at least one of them. But we are strong as a team. So let's help you get to that next level in your real estate success as well, okay? And mastering that next step and where you want to work. You work for the government, work for Caltrans, work for the school district. All these different companies have real estate needs, and then or work for a niche company or work in a niche market for a company, Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, or some other type of amazing company like Eve Capital. All right. I'll see you soon. I'll see you. Oh, they are wrestling. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.